Why this prophecy might be coming true. Some words have to wait centuries for us to understand them. They're dismissed as poetry or madness until a crisis hits, and suddenly, those ancient words seem chillingly relevant. In 1555, a French physician and seer named Michel de Nostradamus, or Nostradamus, published a book of cryptic prophecies. He claimed they stretched thousands of years into the future, possibly to the year 3797. For nearly 500 years, his legacy has been debated. Believers credit him with foretelling everything from the rise of Napoleon to the terror of Adolf Hitler and even the 9/11 attacks. Critics and most scholars argue that his verses are so vague you can make them fit any event after it happens. But one prophecy, a description of a major European conflict, is making people look twice. It describes a war that doesn't end in a clear victory, but drags on until both sides are simply broken. As we watch the war in Ukraine, the parallels between his 500-year-old text and the grim reality of 2025 are getting harder to ignore. What if the script for one of the 21st century's biggest conflicts was written 5 centuries ago? His words are starting to look less like a prophecy and more like a news report. So, who was this guy anyway? Nostradamus lived in 16th century France. He was a man of science in a superstitious world. He worked as a plague doctor, but his path was complicated. He was famously expelled from the University of Montpellier when they discovered his past as an apothecary, or pharmacist, which was considered a manual trade, forbidden by university rules. At night, he would reportedly enter a trance and witness visions of the future, which he wrote down as 4-line poems called quatrains. He deliberately made them confusing, using word games and multiple languages, he said, to avoid being persecuted. His book, Les Prophéties, became an immediate success and has remained astonishingly popular ever since. Out of nearly 1,000 verses, one has become a focal point of speculation today. Century 7, Quatrain 25. Here's the text. Through long war, all the army exhausted, so that they do not find money for the soldiers. Instead of gold or silver, they will come to coin leather, Gallic brass, and the crescent sign of the moon. For centuries, it was just another cryptic verse, but with the war in Ukraine now in its 4th year, each line seems to be clicking into place. So, let's look at the clues. The first line is what grabs you right away. Through long war, all the army exhausted. This feels incredibly direct. The conflict that began in 2022 wasn't the quick fight many expected. It has become a brutal war of attrition, a meat grinder that has consumed lives and military hardware at a shocking rate. By 2025, reports from both sides describe exhausted troops and the grim, soul-crushing fatigue of a protracted struggle. Nostradamus didn't just predict a war, he described a specific kind of war, one defined by its grueling length. But the prophecy goes beyond the battlefield. It points to the economic ruin that fuels the exhaustion. The second line is our next clue, so that they do not find money for the soldiers. In 2025, this is a stark reality. Russia is under immense financial strain from years of international sanctions, its war effort costing a fortune. Ukraine, on the other hand, is almost completely dependent on foreign aid. As political winds shifted in the US and Europe through late 2024 and 2025, that aid became less certain, creating critical shortages not just of weapons, but of the money needed to pay soldiers and keep the government afloat. Both sides, in different ways, are staring at a financial cliff, struggling to find money for the soldiers. So, what happens when the money is gone? Nostradamus offers a third very strange clue. Instead of gold or silver, they will come to coin leather. This sounds like total economic desperation. Modern interpreters see coining leather as a metaphor for a currency collapse. Think of Germany's Weimar Republic after World War I, when hyperinflation made money so worthless it was used as wallpaper. Could this be what Nostradamus saw? A state where the ruble or the hryvnia becomes so devalued it's no more useful than leather? It's a vision of financial ruin, where traditional war financing is replaced by pure desperation. We're piecing together a 500-year-old puzzle, and the picture it's creating is startling. If you find these connections as fascinating as I do, and you want to keep exploring how history and prophecy intersect with our world, take a second to subscribe and click the notification bell. You won't want to miss what we find next. The final line of the prophecy might just point to how it all ends. Gallic brass and the crescent sign of the moon. For centuries, interpreters have identified Gallic as a reference to France. The crescent sign of the moon is widely seen as a symbol of Turkey, featured prominently on its flag. This is where the interpretation gets really interesting. In 2025, who are two of the most critical diplomatic players in the Ukraine conflict? France and Turkey. Under President Macron, France has become a key driver of Europe's response, pushing for stronger European defense. The mention of Gallic brass could symbolize France's bold, unyielding diplomatic stance or its military support. Meanwhile, Turkey has carved out a unique role as a mediator. It controls the vital Bosphorus Strait, has hosted peace talks, and has also supplied Ukraine with key military aid. So let's lay it all out. A prophecy from 1555 describes a long, exhausting war where armies run out of money, economies teeter on the brink of collapse, and two specific nations, France and Turkey, emerge as key players in the endgame. When you compare that to the Russia-Ukraine war, the parallels are chilling. Now, let's be fair to the skeptics. They rightly point out that prophecies are naturally ambiguous. Our brains are wired to see patterns, so we find connections that might not actually be there. They argue that confirmation bias makes us remember the supposed hits and forget the countless misses. War and economic strain are, after all, common themes in history. It's a valid and important critique. No one can prove Nostradamus had supernatural abilities. But what makes this quatrain stand out to believers is the combination of specific details. He didn't just predict a war. He seemed to describe a long war of attrition driven by economic ruin, and then name two powers that are, in fact, central to the diplomatic endgame. For some, stacking all these elements together is too specific to be just a coincidence. We can't know if Nostradamus truly saw a vision of our present day nearly 500 years ago. Was he a prophet, a poet, or just a sharp student of history who knew that the patterns of human conflict tend to repeat? Perhaps the prophecies aren't a map of the future, but a mirror, reflecting the timeless nature of war and desperation. But as the world watches Eastern Europe, the similarities are unsettling. A long war, exhausted armies, financial ruin, and the rise of specific diplomatic powers. It feels like we're reading from an old script. The real question isn't just whether Nostradamus was right about the course of the war, it's what his prophecy might mean for its end. Are we watching a 500-year-old prediction unfold, or is it all just a chilling coincidence? The past has a strange way of speaking to the present. What do you think? Are these parallels just a fluke, or is there something more to it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to keep exploring these historical mysteries, subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss our next investigation. History is watching, and so are we.